The sky above Zytherra glowed in strange colors, a shifting tapestry of violet and gold. The crystalline towers of the palace sparkled under the light, casting reflections that danced like tiny stars. Princess Lyra walked through the marble halls, her robes flowing behind her. Even though the palace was full of beauty and wealth, a shadow always followed her, one that no jewel or decoration could hide. People whispered about her, saying she would never have children. On Zytherra, where royal bloodlines were sacred, that was more than a rumor. It was a mark against her. Lyra had always been different. From a young age, she had shown intelligence and bravery that far surpassed many of the other royals. She could memorize battle strategies and solve puzzles that even her tutors struggled with. Still, despite her talents, the elders and counselors never missed an opportunity to remind her that she was incomplete. The words had left marks, invisible yet heavy, on her heart. She walked faster, shaking off the memories, determined not to let their doubts define her. Far across the galaxy, humans were just beginning to make contact with distant worlds. One of these humans, a diplomat named Ethan, had arrived on Zytherra with the purpose of establishing a fragile alliance between Earth and the alien planet. He was not like the usual Zytheran visitors. He had no desire to impress the royal court with wealth or power. Instead, he carried curiosity, courage, and a calm confidence that drew Lyra's attention when they first met. Ethan was fascinated by Zytherra's sky, its cities, and especially by the princess who walked so briskly through the halls, her eyes full of quiet determination. Their first meeting was formal, in a hall lined with glowing crystals that hummed softly. Lyra observed him from the throne-like dais as he bowed respectfully. He returned her glance with a smile, calm but attentive. For a moment, there was silence, as if both of them were weighing the other. The elders, busy with their own discussions, barely noticed the exchange. Yet Lyra felt something stir inside her, a spark of connection, subtle but undeniable. Later, during a ceremonial parade through the city, Lyra and Ethan found themselves walking side by side. Citizens lined the streets, cheering for the princess and marveling at the human who had arrived from across the stars. Ethan asked her questions about the city's design, the energy crystals that powered the buildings, and the rituals the people celebrated. Lyra answered politely, but she was intrigued by how genuinely interested he was. Few outsiders ever cared about the small details of her world, most only focused on her title or her supposed inability to fulfill the royal duty of producing heirs. One evening, a warning arrived from the outer colonies. A rogue faction had attacked a small settlement, cutting off communication with the main planet. The elders were worried, and some feared the princess would be too weak to lead a response. Lyra, however, could not ignore the danger. She argued with the council, explaining that her knowledge of strategy could make a difference. The elders shook their heads, muttering that she was unfit, and that the mission was too dangerous for her. Ethan, observing the tension, spoke quietly to the council. With her guidance and my assistance, we could manage the situation. Underestimating her abilities might cost more lives than any tradition ever will. The elders exchanged worried glances. Finally, after much debate, they allowed Lyra to act, but only if Ethan accompanied her as an advisor. Lyra felt a mix of relief and surprise. She had not expected any human to defend her in front of her own elders. There was a small, quiet victory in that. The mission was tense. The rogue faction had fortified their position, and the terrain was difficult, filled with jagged crystal formations and steep cliffs. Lyra led the team with precision, moving swiftly from one vantage point to another. Ethan watched her, impressed by her ability to remain calm under pressure. He offered suggestions, based on human experience, that helped them navigate traps and ambushes. Slowly, the two worked together, combining human ingenuity and Zytheran strategy. By the time the sun rose over the horizon, the rogue faction had been defeated. The settlement was safe, and the colonists were grateful. Lyra returned to the palace, exhausted but triumphant. Citizens whispered in amazement. The human diplomat had aided her, but the real hero, they realized, was the princess who had refused to be powerless. For the first time in many years, Lyra felt a spark of pride that had nothing to do with her title or duty. It was pride in her own strength. Back in the palace, Lyra and Ethan walked quietly through the gardens. The light of Zytherra's twin moons shimmered on the leaves and water, creating a peaceful glow. They spoke of small things, plans for the city, the beauty of the crystal towers, and the challenges of leadership. Lyra found herself laughing at some of Ethan's stories, a sound rare in the halls where she usually carried herself with solemnity. For a moment, she felt free from the weight of expectations, free to be herself without judgment. Ethan noticed her smile and felt a surge of respect. "You're remarkable," he said softly. "Most people would crumble under the pressure you face, yet you rise above it." Lyra looked at him, surprised. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Most people either pitied her or ignored her struggles. Ethan seemed to see her for who she truly was, not just as a princess or someone the elders doubted. That night, as Lyra gazed out from her balcony over the glowing city, she thought of the future. For years, she had felt trapped by expectations and whispers of infertility. But now, with this human at her side who saw her worth, she felt the first flicker of hope. Perhaps there was more to her destiny than she had imagined. Perhaps she could find her own path, one that would prove her strength, courage, and heart. Little did she know, this was only the beginning. Across the galaxy, unknown challenges awaited. But for the first time, Princess Lyra felt that she would not face them alone, and that even in a world full of rules and tradition, she might find someone who truly believed in her. The days after the battle were filled with both relief and tension. The colony had been saved, but the elders still whispered about the princess. Some grudgingly admitted her skill in strategy, yet others continued to doubt her worth because of the old claim that she could never bear children. Lyra felt their judgment, but she refused to let it dominate her thoughts. She had won a victory that mattered, and that was proof enough of her strength. Ethan, meanwhile, remained at her side. The human diplomat had quickly adapted to life on Zytherra. He marveled at the alien architecture, the way light bent across the crystal buildings, and the strange flora that shimmered under the twin moons. More than anything, he was captivated by Lyra, not just her beauty, but the intelligence and courage that radiated from her. Unlike many of the alien nobles, he treated her as a person, not a title, and that earned her quiet trust. Lyra found herself enjoying Ethan's company. They explored the palace gardens together, wandering among glowing flowers and listening to the soft hum of the crystals embedded in the ground. He asked her about her childhood, her dreams, and the responsibilities she carried. She spoke cautiously at first, unsure if she could trust him with her fears. Yet, something about his calm demeanor made it easy to open up. One evening, they stood near a small waterfall, its waters catching the light like liquid silver. Lyra spoke of the pressure she felt, the whispers of her infertility, and the isolation that came with being a princess. "They say I can never give life," she said softly, "and that I am incomplete because of it. Sometimes I wonder if I will ever truly be free." Ethan listened, without interrupting, letting her words hang in the air. "You are far from incomplete," he said finally. "Strength is not only measured in what the body can do. You've saved lives, led people, and made decisions that others could not. That is the proof of your power." Lyra looked at him, surprised. Humans were so different from Zytherans. Yet his words carried a simple, clear truth. She realized that perhaps courage and worth were not always tied to tradition. A few days later, news arrived of a larger threat. Reports indicated that a faction of alien raiders had been spotted near another colony, planning an attack that could destabilize parts of Zytherra. The elders, wary of sending the princess into danger, hesitated. But Lyra was determined. She requested a council meeting and presented a strategy to counter the threat. The elders were skeptical, citing her weakness, but Ethan stood firmly in her defense. Her strategy is sound, he said. If we follow her plan, the risk is minimized, and the chances of success are high. Underestimating her would be a mistake. The elders hesitated, but eventually agreed, recognizing that the combined skills of Lyra and Ethan might be the best hope for the colonies. Preparation began immediately. Lyra studied maps and reports, working late into the night to refine her plans. Ethan assisted, offering insights based on human tactics and experience. Though they came from very different worlds, their ideas began to complement each other. Lyra admired his ability to see solutions where others saw obstacles, and Ethan respected her sharp mind and attention to detail. When the day of action arrived, the operation moved like clockwork. Lyra directed forces from the ground, issuing commands with clarity and precision. Ethan coordinated the human volunteers and communication with distant settlements. Together, they formed a seamless team. The raiders had expected an easy target, but Lyra's strategic mind turned the encounter into a carefully orchestrated trap. The battle was intense but brief. The raiders, caught off guard by Lyra's foresight and Ethan's quick adjustments, were forced to retreat. The colonies were safe once more. Citizens hailed Lyra as a hero, and even some of the skeptical elders could not hide their admiration. Yet it was not the victory alone that left Lyra feeling fulfilled. It was the realization that she had a companion who saw her true value, who stood with her not because of duty, but because he chose to. After the operation, Lyra and Ethan returned to the palace under the soft light of Zytherra's twin moons. The air was cool and calm, carrying the scent of alien flowers from the gardens below. They walked in silence at first, both lost in thought. Finally, Lyra broke the quiet. "I have always felt trapped by expectations," she said. "But today, I felt free. Free to lead, to act, and to be myself. I have not felt that way in years." Ethan nodded. "You earned it," he replied. "No one can take that away from you. And remember, you are not alone. Whatever challenges come next, we face them together." There was a warmth in his voice that made Lyra pause. She realized that her feelings for him had deepened, that the connection between them was more than simple friendship. In the following days, Lyra began to notice changes in how the people treated her. Soldiers and citizens who once doubted her abilities now looked at her with respect. Even some elders, quietly observing from a distance, began to acknowledge her talent and judgment. While she still carried the whispers about infertility, they no longer held the same power over her. Lyra's courage, intelligence, and actions had begun to define her more than any rumor. Ethan also became a frequent presence in the palace. He helped her understand human ways, shared stories from Earth, and offered perspectives that challenged old traditions. Lyra found his insights valuable, but even more, she enjoyed his company. For the first time, she felt a sense of partnership, as if two worlds could meet and work together not just out of necessity, but out of mutual respect and admiration. One quiet night, as they watched the shimmering lights of the city from the palace balcony, Ethan spoke again. "There is more to life than duty and expectation," he said. "Sometimes, the courage to choose your own path is the greatest strength of all." Lyra felt a surge of hope. She knew challenges still lay ahead, and that not everyone would accept her choices. Yet, with someone like Ethan by her side, she felt capable of facing anything. That night, as she lay in her chambers, Lyra reflected on the events of the past days, the victories, the bonds, and the quiet moments of understanding with Ethan had begun to change her view of the world. Perhaps being different, being challenged, and facing doubt was not a weakness at all. Perhaps it was the very thing that made her strong. And perhaps, just perhaps, the whispers about infertility were not the end of her story, but only the beginning of a journey she would face on her own terms, with a human companion who chose to walk beside her. Weeks passed since the raid on the colony, but life on Zytherra did not return to normal. Lyra found herself increasingly drawn to the quiet strength of Ethan. Together, they spent long hours in the palace library, poring over ancient texts and studying strategies from both human and Zytheran history. The humans had shared stories of distant worlds, of survival and courage, and Lyra listened intently. She realized that bravery was not only measured in battles but also in choices and the willingness to act despite fear. One morning, as the twin suns rose over the crystalline towers, a messenger arrived from the old section of the palace, the part few dared to visit. He carried a scroll sealed with the symbol of an ancient Zytheran order. Lyra broke the seal and carefully unrolled the parchment. The text was old, written in a language that only the most learned could read. With Ethan by her side, she deciphered the words slowly. It was a prophecy. The prophecy spoke of a princess who would face doubt and whispers, a princess thought unable to continue the royal line, yet it said that this princess would find a mate from another world, a companion whose courage and heart would restore hope to Zytherra. The words were clear. The princess who chose wisely would bring life and unity to the people. Lyra's heart raced as she read. Could it mean Ethan? She glanced at him, and he smiled gently, unaware of the impact the prophecy had on her. She felt a mix of awe and fear. Prophecies were serious matters on Zytherra. Many believed they shaped destiny, while others saw them as warnings. She wondered if the elders would approve, or if they would see this as a challenge to tradition. That evening, Lyra invited Ethan to the palace gardens. The moonlight shimmered over the silver ponds, and alien flowers released soft glows. She spoke carefully, unsure how to frame the conversation. I discovered an old prophecy today, she said. It speaks of a princess who would choose a mate from another world. Someone whose courage and heart could change the future of Zytherra. Ethan listened, his expression thoughtful. Lyra nodded slowly. I think it might. And I think it might refer to you. She watched him carefully, waiting for a reaction. Ethan's eyes widened, a mixture of surprise and humility crossing his face. If it is true, he said, then it seems fate has a strange way of working. But no prophecy can decide what we choose ourselves. Quote, Lyra smiled. That was what she admired about humans, their courage to act even when destiny seemed certain. She realized that while prophecies could guide, the choice was always hers. And now, more than ever, she felt the weight of that choice. The elders had already doubted her. The whispers of infertility still lingered. Yet here was an opportunity to follow her own heart. In the following days, tension grew among the palace elders. Some had learned of Lyra's interest in Ethan, and murmurs spread that a human could never be part of the royal family. They met privately, debating how to intervene, but Lyra remained resolute. She continued to train with her soldiers, plan strategies for the colonies, and spend time with Ethan, all the while ignoring the thinly veiled criticism. She realized that leadership was not only about following rules, it was about making choices, even if they were unpopular. One afternoon, an emergency arrived from a distant colony. A natural disaster had struck, leaving many Zytherans in danger. Lyra immediately proposed a rescue plan. She and Ethan traveled to the colony, working together to evacuate the people. The human's resourcefulness, combined with her knowledge of Zytheran terrain, made the mission efficient and successful. The people they saved cheered, not for the prophecy, not for tradition, but for the brave princess who led them. During the evacuation, Lyra observed Ethan interacting with the Zytheran colonists. They respected him, not because of prophecy or title, but because of his actions, his courage, and his kindness. Lyra felt a deep sense of connection with him, stronger than any whispers about fertility or expectations. For the first time, she felt that their bond was not only emotional, but also meaningful to the people around them. After the mission, Lyra and Ethan returned to the palace. That night, they walked through the quiet halls. The crystal lights reflected softly around them, giving the impression of stars captured within walls. Lyra finally spoke her thoughts aloud. "I've spent so long feeling trapped by expectations. People tell me I am incomplete, but I know now that my worth is not defined by what others say." Ethan reached for her hand. "And neither is mine," he said simply. "We make our own worth through courage, choices, and what we do for others. No one can take that from you, Lyra." She smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. It was the first time in years that she truly felt supported, understood, and free. She realized that the prophecy was not a demand, it was guidance, a possibility. But what mattered most was the choice she made, the courage to act according to her heart. In the days that followed, whispers among the citizens changed. Instead of doubting the princess, many began to admire her courage. Stories of her leadership, her bravery, and her partnership with Ethan spread quietly throughout Zytherra. Some elders continued to resist, but even they could not deny the change in the people's perception. Lyra began to understand that power was not only in bloodlines or prophecy, it was in action, in choices, and in the way one inspired others. One evening, Lyra sat alone in the palace garden, reflecting on her path. She realized that life had tested her in ways she had never imagined. She had faced doubt, whispers, and limitations. But she had also discovered strength within herself and trust in someone from another world. She felt a quiet certainty that the journey ahead would not be easy, but she would face it with courage. She knew now that love, respect, and choice were as powerful as any prophecy or tradition. Ethan approached, carrying 2 glowing vials of water from the garden ponds. "To remind you that even when challenges come, there is always hope." Lyra took the vial, smiling, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. In him, she saw not just a companion, but a partner, someone who would walk beside her through the unknown, through whispers, and through challenges that lay ahead. As the moons reflected in the water, Lyra felt a quiet thrill of anticipation. The prophecy had opened a path, but the true journey was hers to choose. With Ethan beside her, she felt ready to face whatever destiny, tradition, or doubt the galaxy could place in her way. For the first time, she realized that the future was not something to fear, it was something to shape, with courage, intelligence, and the support of someone who truly believed in her. The council chamber was filled with tension. The elders sat in their high seats, their expressions stern, whispering quietly among themselves. Outside, the palace halls were quiet, but word of the gathering had spread. Many citizens waited silently in the galleries, eager to witness what the princess would decide. Lyra entered with measured steps, her robes flowing behind her. Beside her walked Ethan, calm, but alert, ready to stand beside her, no matter what the elders might say. Lyra took her place at the center of the chamber. The room fell silent. Even the whispers ceased, as all eyes turned to her. The elders began their questioning immediately, challenging her choice. "Princess Lyra," one of them said, his voice sharp, "you are considering a mate from another world. This is unprecedented. How can you justify such a decision?" Lyra straightened her posture and lifted her chin. "I justify it not with words alone," she replied, "but with action. I have faced battles, led missions, and protected our people. I have learned that courage and wisdom are not limited to one species. Ethan has stood by me, not because of title or duty, but because of character, skill, and heart. That is what I value in a mate." Murmurs rose among the elders. Some shook their heads, refusing to accept her words. "But he is human," another elder said. "He is not of our bloodline. Tradition cannot bend to accommodate outsiders." Lyra's eyes flashed with determination. "Then perhaps tradition must bend. A leader does not follow tradition blindly. A leader acts for the good of the people and for the future. I choose Ethan because he respects our people, he respects me, and he has proven that love and courage are stronger than fear or prejudice." The chamber fell silent. Even the gallery of citizens seemed to hold its breath. Some elders looked stunned, while others scowled. Ethan stepped forward, his hands open in a gesture of peace. "I do not seek to replace tradition," he said calmly. "I seek only to support the princess and her people. I will act with respect, honor, and courage. If you allow me, I will dedicate myself fully to Zytherra." Lyra felt a surge of pride and relief. The human beside her, who had once been a stranger from another world, now stood openly as her equal and partner. The people were beginning to understand. Even if some elders were slow to accept it, the strength of their bond, built through shared experiences and mutual respect, was undeniable. One elder, a woman known for her sharp mind and cautious wisdom, spoke quietly but firmly. "If this choice is true, then it must be tested. The prophecy says the princess will restore life and unity. Actions must prove intent and worth, not only words." Lyra nodded. She had anticipated this. "Then, we shall show through our actions. I will lead the next mission, with Ethan at my side. Together, we will demonstrate the value of this union, not in ceremony, but in deeds that protect and inspire our people." The council agreed to observe the upcoming mission, a task that would challenge both Lyra and Ethan. The plan involved visiting remote colonies, inspecting defenses, and ensuring the safety of settlements vulnerable to rogue factions or natural hazards. The elders were skeptical, but they could not deny that Lyra's leadership had already saved lives before. During the journey to the colonies, Lyra and Ethan worked closely, coordinating with commanders and volunteers. They faced unforeseen challenges: damaged transport vehicles, difficult terrain, and sudden storms that threatened to slow their progress. Yet, with combined efforts, they adapted, overcame obstacles, and kept the people safe. Each day demonstrated the value of their partnership, showing that courage and intelligence could bridge worlds. News of their success began to spread. Citizens sent messages of support and admiration to the palace. Soldiers praised the princess and her human mate for their bravery and resourcefulness. Even some of the more stubborn elders began to acknowledge that the union might not be as impossible as they once believed. The people's eyes were opening, seeing that strength and love were not bound by species. One evening, after returning from a successful mission, Lyra and Ethan walked through the palace gardens. The twin moons reflected off the water, casting a soft glow on the silvered plants. Lyra spoke quietly, as if sharing her thoughts with the stars themselves. "I once feared I would never have the power to shape my destiny. The whispers about infertility, the doubts of elders, they weighed heavily on me. But now, I see that strength comes from courage, choice, and the support of someone who believes in you." Ethan smiled. "And I am proud to stand by your side. You inspire not only your people, but everyone who witnesses your actions. Together, we are stronger than tradition, stronger than fear, and stronger than doubt." The following day, Lyra addressed the council once more. She recounted their journeys, the challenges faced, and the lives saved. She spoke not with arrogance, but with calm authority, demonstrating the effectiveness of their partnership. She emphasized that leadership was about vision, action, and courage, not mere adherence to old customs. Slowly, the mood in the chamber shifted. Some elders nodded in understanding, while others remained cautious, but silent. The words of the people, the visible results of their efforts, and the bond between Lyra and Ethan were becoming impossible to ignore. The princess had not only chosen a mate, but she had shown that this choice was rooted in wisdom, strength, and heart. Finally, Lyra turned to the council with quiet confidence. "I have made my choice," she said. "Ethan will stand with me, not because prophecy demands it, but because he has earned it. We will face the future together, not as princess and outsider, but as partners who respect, protect, and serve our people. I ask for your support, not out of fear, but because it is right." There was a long silence. Then, slowly, one elder spoke, nodding. "You have shown courage and wisdom, princess. The people have seen your strength. Perhaps it is time for tradition to acknowledge change." Others murmured their agreement. Even the skeptics could no longer deny the evidence before them. Lyra felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had faced the council, the tradition, and the whispers. She had made her choice openly and boldly, and she had demonstrated that the bond between her and Ethan was not only personal but meaningful for Zytherra's future. The path ahead was still full of challenges, but she felt ready to face them. That night, Lyra and Ethan stood on the balcony overlooking the city. The crystal towers reflected the moonlight, and the people of Zytherra slept peacefully, unaware of how close their world had come to conflict. Lyra's heart swelled with hope. For the first time, she felt that she was shaping her destiny, not being shaped by others. She had chosen courage over fear, love over doubt, and action over hesitation. Ethan placed a hand on hers. "The future is ours to build," he said softly. Lyra nodded, feeling a sense of calm determination. Together, they would face whatever challenges awaited. They would prove that love, courage, and partnership could change a world, that strength was measured not by tradition alone, and that a human could indeed stand beside an alien princess as an equal, a protector, and a partner in shaping the destiny of Zytherra. The palace was alive with quiet anticipation. Word of Lyra's choice had spread through the city, and even those who once doubted her now watched with curiosity. Citizens gathered in the gardens and balconies, hoping to glimpse the princess and her human companion, wondering what the future would hold for the union that had defied tradition. Lyra felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. This was more than a personal choice, it was a moment that could change Zytherra forever. Ethan stood beside her, calm and steady. His presence had become a source of strength for her, a reminder that courage could come not only from within, but also from those who believed in you. Together, they prepared for a ceremony unlike any Zytherra had ever witnessed. It was not a celebration of birth or lineage, but a celebration of choice, partnership, and hope. The elders, though still wary, had agreed to witness the event. Some maintained stern expressions, while others watched with cautious interest. Lyra took a deep breath and stepped forward, addressing the gathered crowd. "For many years, I have been told that I am incomplete, that I cannot continue the royal line, and that my worth is defined by a single expectation. Today, I show that strength, courage, and love define a person, not whispers or doubt. I have chosen Ethan, a human, as my mate not for tradition, but for trust, respect, and the future of our people." The words hung in the air. For a moment, silence filled the space. Then, slowly, applause began. Soft at first, then growing into a wave of approval from citizens and soldiers alike. The people saw not only the courage of their princess, but also the courage of a human who stood beside her, willing to embrace a world unlike his own. The elders exchanged glances. Some looked uncertain, but even the skeptics could not ignore the loyalty and skill displayed by the pair in recent missions. One elder stepped forward, her voice steady. "Princess Lyra, you have shown wisdom, courage, and leadership beyond your years. If this choice brings unity and hope to Zytherra, then it is worthy of respect." The chamber echoed with nods and murmurs of agreement. Lyra allowed herself a small smile. That evening, Lyra and Ethan entered the chamber of the ancient oracle, a place few had seen. The walls were lined with glowing symbols, and the air hummed with an energy older than the city itself. The oracle, a figure robed in silver, looked upon them with eyes that seemed to see everything. "The prophecy speaks of the union that will restore hope," the oracle said. "You have chosen wisely. Now it is time to awaken the life that lies dormant within the princess." Lyra felt a mix of awe and fear. The elders had believed her infertile for years, yet here was the oracle, offering a chance to fulfill the ancient promise. She stepped forward, trusting not only in the prophecy but in the human beside her who had always treated her with respect and courage. Ethan took her hand gently, his touch grounding her. "Whatever happens," he said softly, "we face it together." The ritual began. Light flowed from the walls and floor, surrounding Lyra and Ethan. Strange symbols shimmered in the air, and the energy of Zytherra pulsed through the room. Lyra felt warmth and strength fill her body, a sensation both powerful and comforting. The oracle's voice intoned words in the ancient tongue, weaving the prophecy into reality. For the first time, Lyra felt a certainty she had never known, a certainty that she could fulfill her destiny and continue the royal line, not because of expectation, but because of courage, choice, and love. When the ritual ended, Lyra felt a calm confidence. The oracle smiled, bowing slightly. "The path is open. Life and unity will follow your courage and choice." Ethan squeezed her hand, and she returned the gesture, feeling a deep bond that neither prophecy nor tradition could define. In the weeks that followed, news spread that the princess could indeed bear children. Scientists and healers examined her and confirmed that the ancient belief of infertility had been incorrect all along. The citizens rejoiced, not only because the prophecy seemed fulfilled, but because their princess had proven that strength and courage could overcome doubt and tradition. Lyra's happiness was profound. She and Ethan walked through the palace gardens, discussing plans for the future, ways to strengthen the alliance between humans and Zytherans, and how to inspire hope across the galaxy. Their partnership was no longer a secret or a source of doubt, it had become a symbol of possibility, proving that love, courage, and intelligence could bridge worlds. Months later, Lyra gave birth to a healthy child, a beautiful symbol of unity between two worlds. The people celebrated not only the birth but the journey that had brought them there, the courage to defy expectations, the wisdom to choose love and partnership, and the determination to shape a future with hope and integrity. Ethan stood proudly beside Lyra, holding her hand as they introduced their child to the citizens of Zytherra. The elders, once skeptical and resistant, now looked on with respect and admiration. They had witnessed firsthand that courage, partnership, and action mattered more than mere adherence to old rules. Lyra had not only chosen a mate but had also shown that leadership required bravery in both heart and mind. As the city shimmered under the light of the twin moons, Lyra and Ethan stood on the palace balcony, their child nestled safely in their arms. The citizens below cheered, a chorus of hope and approval. Lyra realized that the whispers of doubt, the fears of infertility, and the strict traditions that had once weighed so heavily on her shoulders were no longer her burden. She had chosen courage over fear, love over doubt, and action over hesitation. Ethan looked at her, his eyes reflecting pride and affection. Lyra nodded, feeling a warmth that went beyond happiness. It was the satisfaction of knowing that they had shaped their own destiny together. "This is only the beginning," she said, her voice calm and confident. "We have built a future where strength is measured by courage, wisdom, and love. Our child will grow in a world where possibilities are not limited by fear or tradition." The city of Zytherra seemed to shine brighter that night, as if celebrating with them. Crystalline towers reflected the moonlight. The gardens glowed softly, and the citizens' cheers echoed into the distance. For Lyra, Ethan, and their child, the future was open, full of promise, and shaped by the choices of two courageous beings from different worlds. In the quiet of the palace, Lyra reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She had faced doubt, whispers of inadequacy, and the weight of expectation. Yet she had chosen her own path, embraced courage, and found a partner who shared her vision. The prophecy had been fulfilled, not by destiny alone, but by the deliberate choices of a princess and a human who dared to believe in each other. And as the twin moons rose high over Zytherra, Lyra held her child close, feeling the warmth of life, hope, and love. She knew that whatever challenges awaited, she and Ethan would face them together. The people had witnessed the strength of courage and partnership, and a new era had begun, one where boundaries between worlds could be crossed, expectations could be challenged, and the future could be shaped by those brave enough to act with heart and wisdom. Lyra smiled at Ethan, and he returned the smile. Together, they looked out over the city, their hearts full of hope, their spirits unbroken, and their bond unshakable. The princess who was once told she could never have children had not only fulfilled the prophecy, but had also shown her people that true strength lies in courage, choice, and love. And Zytherra would never forget the day that a human and an alien princess changed the course of history together.